2003. I was 6 years old, and it was Christmas. My mother and father were divorced, and I was spending the time with my father at the time. I was opening Christmas presents, and there were a bunch of Pokemon toys. I remember one of them being a really cool little toy of Larion. You would pull its tail and it would do a headbutt move. And the other toy was of Swallow. You would press down on its back, this little button, and it would flap its wings. I was opening all my toys and there was one gift left, a small little box. So I opened it up, and I was greeted with this colorful red box with this cool looking dinosaur on it. And in big letters it said Pokemon Ruby version. I remember opening it up, putting the really cool looking cartridge into my Game Boy Advanced, and turning it on, and beginning my first adventure in Hoenn. Even years before that, I remember waking up early mornings on Saturday to go downstairs and watch different TV shows with my sister. We used to watch Power Rangers, Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and Pokemon. I remember loving all of the Pokemon, looking at them. They were so cool. There were so many different types. Especially Trico. Trico stood out to me the most because he was a lizard. And I grew up in Georgia, and I used to capture bugs and lizards back then when I was a little kid. And I thought Trico was so cool being a gecko. Pokemon Ruby was my first Pokemon game ever, and that's what introduced me into the region. I remember spending long nights. I had the Pokemon, I had the Game Boy Advance and the Game Boy Advance SP. I remember on school nights, like staying under my covers and playing Pokemon Ruby for a long time. Specifically, I remember running around Dewford Town really late at night when I was supposed to be asleep, and I knew my mom knew, but she let me play anyway, and I just pretend like she didn't know. But I remember the first time entering the Hoenn region, and it was just a grand sense of adventure. This big tropical island, the music, the Pokemon, everything was so colorful, everything was fantastic. Everything was so immersive and brought me into this Pokemon world. 2004. I was 7. I woke up on my birthday, and I was greeted with my mom and my sister coming into my room and handing me my birthday present, which was Pokemon Fire Red version. I was so happy. I remember opening the box immediately and slamming it into my 3DS, slamming it into my Game Boy Advance and turning it on, and playing through the opening introduction, talking to Oak, the white background and the little blue tile set around it and everything. And I remember going to choose my first Pokemon in the Kanto region, which was Charmander, of all Pokemon. I had so much fun beginning my adventure, and it was so different, yet similar to Ruby, and it was really interesting, and I'd never encountered this region before. It was something really special. And then I remember running downstairs, and my neighbors, who were really close, they're like family, they still are, they came over because our backyard, since we were so close, they actually made a gate into the fence so that we could just walk back and forth between each other's backyards. I remember them coming over, walking in through our back door, and they handed me a present. And I opened up the present, and it was another copy of Pokemon Fire Red. And I laughed, and I told them that I already had this present. And I asked them if they can get me Pokemon Leaf Green instead. And they said, yeah, no problem. I remember having Pokemon both Fire Red and Leaf Green, and how cool that was. And I remember eventually having 2 Game Boys. I had the SP and the normal Advance, the purple one. My sister had a pink one. And I remember the little wireless attachment that came with the games, and clicking them into both Game Boys and like trying to line them up by myself. Like stacking books and stuff and trying to trade Pokemon between Fire Red and Leaf Green. That was so fun. And Leaf Green, I chose Squirtle as my starter. Poor Bulbasaur. He got his spotlight eventually, but for a long time, Squirtle and Charmander were my favorites. Then I remember in 2005, Pokemon Emerald came out. It was an expansion to Pokemon Ruby, which was... my childhood was built upon Pokemon Ruby. And I remember seeing Pokemon Emerald, seeing an ad for it on TV, and it was so cool. And I was like, oh man, I had to have this game. And I lived in a cul-de-sac back then, and my neighbors, they were big Pokemon fans too, except they were jerks. And they had Pokemon Emerald, and they would always show it off, like, oh, look how cool this game, look how cool this game is. And they'd show me all their cool Pokemon, they were high-leveled. I'm like, wow, I can't even imagine having those kind of Pokemon. I was still playing Ruby at the time. I had a level 96 Blaziken. I was one of those kids that never really trained another team of Pokemon. I just had my starter, like, extremely over-leveled, which Blaziken is a good Pokemon, and it did carry me throughout the whole game. I remember fighting in Pokemon Ruby through the Elite Four, getting to Drake with just Blaziken, and fighting him and losing over and over and over again. And then finally I was able to beat Drake after a long time. Actually, one of my most vivid memories of Ruby was... I was with my dad, and we were at this party, and I was playing Pokemon Ruby, and I was fighting and losing against Drake with my very high-level Blaziken, and this kid was like, oh, hey, you're playing Pokemon? I have a Pokemon game, too. And so we went to his room, and he had his Pokemon game, Ruby, hooked up into his GameCube, which I thought was really, really cool at the time. I mean, it's still pretty cool, I think. And he was showing me Route, I think like Route 20 or so, right before Fortree, where the Institute is. And it's raining in the tall grass and everything. And he showed me this really cool Pokemon that I've never seen before. It was Dragonite. And he had Surf on his Dragonite, and he was surfing around the water. And I thought it was just incredible. That scene and the Dragonite, and there's still so much of Pokemon that I never knew. So years later, when Emerald came out, I was like, oh, this is my chance. This is my chance to get back in, well, not get back into Pokemon, but like become stronger and have new cool Pokemon. And I wanted Emerald so badly, and all my friends had it, and I was the only one that didn't. I remember my sister asking to like go out with her friends, and she wanted me not to tell my mom that she was going to go out, and I asked her to buy me Pokemon Emerald. She said yes, but she never did. And then one year for Christmas, I think it was 2006, I was 9 then, my grandmother, well, not my grandmother, my aunt, got everyone presents. And so I went to open my presents, and I wasn't expecting anything cool, just toys and books and clothes and stuff. And I opened up, and it was Pokemon Emerald, and it was the most amazing thing. I was so happy. I immediately jumped up and ran over to my aunt and gave her a big hug, and I thanked her so much, because this game I was like looking and seeking for so long. I finally had it, and I put it into my Game Boy, and I turned it on, and honestly, it was like the first time that I turned on Ruby. It was a brand new adventure for me, and it was so fantastic. It was like anything I've never experienced before, even though I have. And still today, I still have that same copy of Emerald, though it's been through a lot. I remember going through a phase of looking up Pokemon hacks online, and Pokemon Emerald was the one that hacked all the time. And so I didn't know how to do a hack back then. I was like 9. So I actually like took the screw off the back of my game, tried to like take out the battery, poured water on it, threw the cartridge against the my closet door to try to quote-unquote hack the game. Eventually I found out that's not how you hack the game, and I was so lucky that all of that damage didn't do a single thing to my cartridge. I did lose the screw though, so actually I had to tape the cartridge closed because the back wouldn't stay on. But I still have that very same cartridge, and I love it, and I've played through Emerald so many times on that cartridge and other cartridges, and even emulators. And this cartridge that I have now, I use it to store all my Pokemon from the Gen 3. Excluding when I want to like play through Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, which was my first Pokemon game for the GameCube. I used to play that all the time too, and I love Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. But Emerald was and continues to be my all-time favorite Pokemon game. I remember looking up videos and everything for it. I remember looking up how to find the Regis, and I was like, whoa! what an interesting thing to try to find the Reggies. It was just like so out there. It was amazing. And I remember I was sitting in my mom's room one day, and I was watching Pokemon Destiny Deoxys on TV, and I went to a commercial, and it showed this. The commercial was like of this like blue dragon thing, as on all fours, and it was kind of like sailing through the sky, and then it's panned over to another dragon type thing. It was like kind of pink, and it was also sailing through the sky. And then they're on the little DS stylus, and I looked at them. I was like, "Oh, those look like really cool Yu-Gi-Oh monsters." And then it panned out, and it was like the new Pokemon Diamond and Pearl version. And I was like, "What?" And it blew my 10-year-old mind. I could not believe what I was seeing. A new Pokemon game for the DS. That was amazing. I remember watching the rest of that movie. Every time a commercial came on, I was like staring at the TV intently, trying to find that that commercial again. I never did. I don't know why, but they only showed it that one time. And I was so bummed. It still burned into my memory because it was so cool. It's like these two kids in a car and they're playing with the stylus. Because if you remember, if you pre-ordered the game, they gave you this little stylus with the Pokemon on top. Of course, when I went to go pre-order the game, they were out of styluses, so I never got them. But still, I eventually bought them online, and it was so amazing seeing that commercial and seeing Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. My mom would give me money every so often, and like whenever she got a bonus or something. And so I remember these little Lego, like, I don't even know what to call these little cases they can carry Legos in. If they're really small, I would like shove money into them, and I wrote Pokemon. I put Diamond on one and Pearl on the other, and I was saving up to buy both games. So eventually the time came for me to purchase both games, and so I remember waking up really early in the morning. I pre-ordered them at Target, and so I had my mom take me there, and so we were waiting outside at like 8 a.m. waiting for the place to open. There were several other people there as well, and so finally let us in, and I made like a beeline towards the back of the store where you pick up your all electronics are. So I ran over, and there's like this one family in front of me, and so they went to go pick up the game. But the little boy hadn't pre-ordered his, and so the guy told him, "Oh, sorry, you can only pick it up at this time if you're pre-ordered." And so the dad and the boy were kind of disappointed. They walked away, and I walked up, and I only had enough money for Diamond. I didn't have enough for Pearl, so I went up to go buy Diamond, and then my mom was like, "Oh, are you gonna buy the other one?" And I said, "I don't have enough money for it." And she's like, "Okay," and so she took my money for Diamond, and she purchased both Diamond and Pearl for me. And I was so happy for it. While we were driving away, she was like, "Oh, you should have gave one of your games to the other kid." And I was like, "Oh, I got straight A's recently, though, so I deserve these games." And she was like, "Fine, whatever, you get them." And at the time, my mom was going to this yoga studio. So we went to the yoga studio, and she went to go take her class. And I remember sitting outside of the room and putting in Pokemon Diamond first, and starting up the game and choosing Turtwig as my starter. And then getting a little bit further into the game, then pausing, saving it, turning off, then turning on Pearl, and choosing Piplup, which Piplup eventually became my favorite starter for the Sinnoh region. And then Pokemon Platinum. So this is when I started getting more into the internet. I remember looking online and learning that this Pokemon game called Pokemon Opal was going to be made soon, and eventually came to be called Pokemon Platinum. And it revolved around Giratina. And so I really wanted that game, and so I saved up for it, I pre-ordered it and everything. I was following the Japanese release of it and everything. And then I remember waking up early one morning and asking my sister to go take me to go pick up the game. And she was like, "You have to finish your homework first." So I sat down and to finish my homework. It was like 9 a.m., the store's been open for like an hour, and I'm like trying to finish my homework so I can go get Pokemon Platinum. And I finally get it, and I bring it home, turn it on, and I pick Piplup as my starter Pokemon. And I go through, and Pokemon Platinum was so fun to play through. But yeah, just waiting, the anticipation in the morning beforehand, getting it, that was really fun. And the same thing when Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver were announced in Japan. I was following that and the release of it in Japan, and I even watched a YouTuber play through the entire game. And so I was so prepared and so ready to play it. I even got the Japanese emulated games of it, but they always crash at a certain point, so I couldn't get too far. So when the game finally released, my mom actually had to leave for the day, so she had the car, and so it was like the longest day ever. I was like, okay, Mom, I pre-ordered these 2 games. Can you please go pick them up? There's a pre-order bonus for both of them. It's supposed to come with a little figurine of Ho-Oh and Lugia. Though Lugia was sold out, so I only got Ho-Oh. I remember waiting around the whole day and calling her like several times, be like, "Are you gonna come home yet? Are you gonna come home yet?" And so finally she came home and she brought both games and just the one figure for me. And I was still so happy. I turned on Soul Silver and I chose I think Totodile as my starter Pokemon. And that was really cool because I had the Pokewalker and everything, so I had to take my Pokemon with me. I had a friend at school, and we would always talk about Pokemon together. So I remember bringing my Pokewalker, and we used to talk about that and everything. That was so cool. I think that was when I was 12. And then when I was 13, I remember they were announcing a new Pokemon game, and they released the silhouettes of the starter Pokemon, and we were all wondering what it was going to be. This is 2011. We were all wondering what it was going to be. And then I remember my mom, my sister, and I were about to go to a party one night. And just by chance, I decided to check the Pokemon website right before I left. And I opened it up, and there was this huge page of these 2 massive dragon Pokemon. One that was all black, one that was all white. I didn't know what their names were, but they looked so cool. It was Zekrom and Reshiram, as I eventually came to know. And they were so cool just standing side by side. And I remember freaking out about this. And I was so excited for Black and White. And the same thing once when it was released in Japan, I watched someone play through the whole game. And I was really excited to play through it. The game had taken a different look for graphics-wise than the other games had taken. And there was even a big Pokemon convention over in the US. So I remember taking my 2 friends, and my mom drove us there. We went to this big Pokemon convention. We walked around and we got stamps, and there's plushes and keychains, and this whole mall-wide thing. And it was so cool, and we got to play little demos of the game, and I felt so proud of myself because I was like, I already watched someone play through the whole game online. I know what's gonna be in this game already. And I already had a team picked out and everything. I was so excited. And the games came out, and I played them, and they were fantastic. And then I actually remember playing through Pokemon White first, and I did something, and my mom grounded me. And so for a long time, I couldn't play Pokemon White. Then she's probably listening to me now, but I would sneak the game when she was sleeping, and I would still play through it. And then eventually me and my friend would because he was playing the game as well, we would meet up and we would fight every so often, and that was really cool because before I never really connected with anyone else to play and fight and stuff, but that was the first time I really did that, other than Diamond and Pearl when I connected with my own DS. And then I remember there was a Pokemon Direct or something like that, and they were going to announce new Pokemon games, and everyone was anticipating Pokemon Gray or Generation 6 or something, and then they announced Pokemon Black and White 2, and no one expected that, and that was so cool. And they showed off the trailer for it, and I just went wild. It was so cool. And so I remember following that for a little bit. It was 2012. I remember following that, and the games finally came out, and I picked them both up. I think so. So far, every game I've picked up both generations or both installments of them, except for Ruby. I only got Ruby, didn't get Sapphire until later on in my life. So I remember playing both Pokemon Black and White too. Actually, I didn't get both. I didn't have enough money to get Pokemon Black 2. I only have White 2. I still don't have black 2, actually. I only have white 2. And I played through the game, and it was a really odd experience. I liked it, and I played it all the way till the Elite Four, and then I stopped just completely. I turned it off, and I was like, this is a good game. And then years later, I came back to it, and I was like, I never finished this game. And then I beat it, and I was like, this is still a pretty good game. And for whatever reason, I really liked the game. I only played it once, though. But it was still a great game, I think. I had lots of fun. I had like a team of like level 60 Pokemon at the end of the game. That was really cool. Usually how I play games, I play through the story mode and then I stop. And so I usually don't get like high level Pokemon because I don't play past that. So it's usually like 40 or 50 and I stop. But the game was a little bit longer and there's different changes and stuff. So getting that far and getting Pokemon that high level, that was really cool. And then Pokemon X and Y were announced, and I remember watching the trailer for it over and over and over and over again on YouTube. And actually, when we picked it up, I was like in between houses. So we just moved out of our old house, and we were about to move into our new one. And we were staying with a friend, and I asked my mom to like drive me because there was a midnight release. So my mom was like sleeping, and I had to like wake her up at midnight to ask her to drive me to GameStop so that we could at midnight so that I can go and pick up the games. And there was like this contest outside, and they're like, oh, what Pokemon's like number 100 and stuff like that, just like Pokemon trivia, and you could win a poster. And I won 2 posters actually for X and Y. I still have them both. One side is of Xerneas and Yveltal, and the other side of the Kalos region, a map of the Kalos region. And I have 2 maps, and I had them both up on my wall. And so X and Y were super fun to play through, and it was so amazing seeing Pokemon in 3D. It just blew my mind that Pokemon had come so far. So now I'm age 16, it's 2014, and for years I've been wanting a Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire remake. I've gone on forums and stuff. I've made videos about it. I've wanted these games because like these games were my childhood, and I wanted a remake of them for so long. And finally, they were doing an announcement, and I was like, "This is either going to be Generation 7 or the Gen 3 remakes." That's pretty much all it could be. And to my pleasure, it was the Gen 3 remakes, Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and I was so excited. Actually, how I found out about it was, I was on Reddit, and I was going through pictures, and I saw this one picture of a really cool-looking Groudon and Kyogre on this box art that said Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. And they were like, and the title was like the new Pokemon games. And I looked at it, and I was like, oh, that looks pretty cool. I wish those were real. And then I kept scrolling through, and I found another picture, and I was like, "What? Why are there 2 pictures? This can't be possible. Is this really true?" So like I went on the Pokemon subreddit, I went online, and looked on the website, and it was true, and these games were coming to life. This thing that I wanted since the games were first released. I wanted a remake of them already. I was so excited for them. I was extremely hyped. I remember running around the house and like telling my mom and my sister about these new games and how long I waited for them. The games finally came out, and I went to a midnight release. I was old enough to drive then, so I drove myself there. Went to the midnight release. I picked them up. I drove home. I put Pokemon Sapphire. Actually, I started with Sapphire, Alpha Sapphire, into my 3DS, and I turned on the game and began. And I chose Mudkip as my starter. And it was great. And I played through the games, and actually, I played through like half of... I got past Fortree City in Pokemon Sapphire, and then I stopped, and I turned it off. Then I didn't play it for a long time. Then I put in Pokemon Omega Ruby, and I played through the entire game. Maybe I just have that nostalgia for it, but I'm not really sure. The thing is, I've played Pokemon Emerald so many times, like, I can't even begin to count how many times I've played it. But I know that game like inside and out, and so much that when playing Oris, it was so different from Emerald or what I knew that it felt foreign to me, and it was really strange. And now it's 2016. I'm 18 years old. Well, I'll be 19 later on this year. and I'll be 19 when Generation 7 Pokemon Sun and Moon come out, and I'll begin my new journey in the new region. And I'm really excited for that. So my roots with Pokemon go back a long time. Like I said before, Trico used to be my favorite Pokemon, because I saw it was just a gecko, and it was super cool, and I loved it. And then, like, years down the road, I heard you like Mudkip meme. I thought it was really funny for whatever reason. So I went online, I looked up that meme, looked up Mudkip pictures, and I looked up Mudkip so much that it actually became my favorite Pokemon. That's the time I really like fish, and I really like the sea. I really think they're cool. I think it's a cool setting, and just like how fish move so flawlessly and effortlessly throughout the ocean and stuff. And Mudkip is a mudfish Pokemon. So put 2 and 2 together, and Mudkip became my favorite Pokemon because of the joke. And it was great. So Pokemon Mudkip is still my favorite Pokemon, and I try to use it whenever I can. I remember when Pokemon Ranger came out, and trying to put in the code to get the Manaphy. I remember following the trailers and stuff for the third Pokemon Ranger game. I remember going to Best Buy to buy the second Pokemon Ranger game. I remember for my birthday wanting Pokemon Mystery Dungeon so badly, and I finally got it. I didn't have a DS back then, so I got not Fire Red, but Red Rescue Team version for the Game Boy Advance. And I played that, and I remember doing the test at the beginning, the personality test, and getting a Machop, and I was really mad because I was like, I'm not a Machop, I'm a Trico. So I turned the game off and I turned it back on, and I was like, what would a Trico be like? So I answered all the questions to what I thought a Trico would be like based off of its personality and like the anime and stuff, and I got a Trico my second try, and I chose Mudkip as my partner, and I went through the game. And actually, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon was the first game to ever make me cry. It was the time, like, right after you fought Rayquaza, I think. Not Rayquaza, but after you went to the Great Canyon and talked to Xatu, and he told you that you were the human, and there's a bunch of stuff happening. Anyway, it's the time where you disappeared. You turned into these little sparkles, and you disappeared, and your partner cried, and they wanted you back. And their tears are so strong that they brought you back. And that was the first time I ever cried in a game. And it was really cool. And pretty much every Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game has made me cry, except for Gates to Infinity. But like, they're really powerful games, especially since you just don't expect it. Because you see it's like a harmless Pokemon game, and then you turn it on, and it just wraps you into this world that you just did not expect. Pokemon XD Yellow Darkness, I play at least like 2 or 3 times every year. It's such a fun game. I had it since I was a kid, back when I had a Ruby, and I still have it now, and I play it all the time. I go through the whole game. I pick a team. I go online and I pick a team of what Pokemon I want. Then I go through the game, get all the Pokemon. Once I beat the game, I transfer them all over to my Emeralds version, and then restart the XD version, and I play through it again. But, I mean, through every step of my life, since I was even younger than 6 to now, and into the future as well, Pokemon has always been with me, and it'll always be with me. And, like, whenever, it's just something that makes me happy, and it makes me comfortable, and just thinking about the different worlds and the different Pokemon just brings me so much joy. And I can't imagine really being in a world without that kind of Pokemon. And the community is so big, and everyone's so nice, and everyone's just collaborating together. And the games are very ambitious at what they try to do, and how they try to connect everyone together. And it just, every time anyone brings up Pokemon at all, I'm always right there talking about it, and I love it, and I know so much. It's like a huge part of my brain is like allocated to Pokemon information. It's just something I really love. And I think my life would be a lot sadder if I didn't have Pokemon with me. Through the hard times, it brings me so much joy, and it's so great. And so the fact that, 20 years Pokemon has been around now, I've been alive for I've been alive for those entire 20 years. I've had Pokemon since I was born, and I will continue to have Pokemon until I die. Which hopefully won't be anytime soon, so I can play some more Pokemon games. But Pokemon means a lot to me. It's my childhood, it's nostalgia, it's hope for the future, it's something to look forward to, it's a comforting friend to look forward to. It's there, and it's something that makes me happy. That's what Pokemon means to me, that's what Pokemon is to me, and I'm just super excited and happy to celebrate the 20 years of Pokemon that I've had. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you can share this love of Pokemon with me as well. If you want to share your own experiences in the comment section, please do so. I'd love to read how Pokemon has affected your life. Thank you for listening.